Welcome back to another instant reaction edition of the Night Report podcast. Joining you once again, Richie Schneiderite. Richie, this one kind of came out of left field. We got a commitment from, I'd assume he's an athlete. He's Vilay Nakkoun Jr. He's from Orlando, Florida. He goes to Orlando Christian Prep. You told me that this happened, and I looked at his tape for about 5 minutes. He looks like he's a fairly good athlete. I don't really know much about this kid. I haven't really heard him talked about. Tell us a little bit about Vilay Nakkoun Jr.
Yeah, so we posted an article on a board post yesterday, day before, something like that. He scheduled the Rutgers official visit for the 21st of June. It's going to be his first ever trip to Rutgers. So this is kind of a unique situation. Most of these commitments that Rutgers takes is usually a guy that has visited campus at least once. So this kind of tells you how they feel about him. They obviously like him a ton. He's listed 6'1", 175, but looking back through a couple of tweets and a couple other things on social media, Elite 11 had him at 5'11". When I say Elite 11, you guys all think quarterback, but this is an athlete. He plays quarterback for his high school program, but he's going to come in kind of like similar to Rashad Rochelle last recruiting cycle. He's a quarterback for his high school team because you always put the best athlete possible at quarterback. So he's going to come in as an athlete. He's been talking a lot with Demir Shaw. So that's what makes me think it's most likely going to be a receiver when it's all said and done, or at least at first. But as we know, as we've kind of seen with Chiano, you recruit these athlete types and kind of just feel it out and see where they kind of fit better. Igbinosin, for example, fit better on defense. Max Patterson, I thought was a better defensive player than an offensive player, but now he's back on offense after he switched, twice already, and he's only been there for a year, less than that.
Yep.
So, I mean, yeah, this is just one of those dynamic athletes. He runs a 4.40 per his coach, and obviously he's pretty fast, pretty elusive on tape. I don't know how good the Orlando area is for football. It doesn't seem like it's the best in the world, but I mean, it seems like a pretty decent get for Rutgers, and kind of one of those under the radar ones.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're targeting these athletes to play wide receiver, the last few classes at least. Yeah, he looks super shifty. He's got legit speed on tape. He's able to get past DBs and linebackers with ease, it seems. And I guess kind of like a side note question, like what do coaches look for on tape when they're thinking, I really like this guy, but at this position instead of the position they play in high school?
That's a tough one. So, for example, this case, I feel like it's kind of easy. You kind of mentioned it too. You see that elusiveness, and like obviously, he doesn't have the best offensive line in the world down at Orlando Christian. So he is running most of the time. So it's instead of just running a route, he is going to get the ball in open space, and you're going to kind of see his maneuvering around guys, whether it be a little shiftiness here and there, vision down the field while he's making these cuts in and out. So that's kind of where the receiver part of it comes into play. And then you kind of just look at his build, and it's basically a wide receiver. I mean, you can't really put him anywhere else. He's too skinny for running back. He doesn't have like the legs, I guess, for running back either, you can argue. But yeah, it's mostly that elusiveness, I would say, that just dynamic type of athlete profile. And then you kind of see that as a quarterback, and you're like, ooh, we can make this work a little bit, because if he's that shifty in open space, put him at receiver, teach him route running a little bit. He might not contribute year one or year two, but you don't really need that when you're at the college level. You need guys that are contribute, or to be able to develop guys and have them contribute year 3 and 4 and 5, et cetera, et cetera. At this point, some guys are year 6 with the whole COVID thing, but yeah, I mean, I honestly I'm a pretty big fan of this kid. I think he's a little diamond in the rough, and it takes a lot for me to say that, because some of the other commits I'm not as high on. But this one I kind of like. I think I could kind of see where the staff's looking at him, and where they kind of see him as that. I keep saying dynamic, but like that's how you describe the kid. Like he's elusive in space, and teach him route running. He's already got pretty big hands if you look at his photos too. So that's another thing that could help. So yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty solid get for Rutgers.
Yeah, it's just interesting the timing. I assumed this is the time of year where offers go out in camp, because they've seen a guy who maybe hasn't played receiver in high school, and they work him out as a receiver, and they really like what they see. But obviously he hasn't been to the Rutgers camp. He's going to be making his first visit the 21st, like you said, during that big official visit. Not weekend, it's a weekday visit.
Yeah,
it's like a Tuesday, Wednesday.
Yeah, it's kind of smart on their part too, because everyone is scheduling these weekend trips. And I feel like a lot of teams are just like, yeah, we're only going to do a weekend thing. We'll do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or Pitt does a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or something like that. And Rutgers is kind of thinking like maybe this is just this is me talking for them, so I don't know if this is obviously how they're thinking, but it's more like, hey, these kids are out of school. Like, it's June 21st. What are we doing? Like, let's get as many kids on campus as possible. So let's get them on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before they could book those other trips. Who cares? Like, we'll get them on those 3 day or 2-3 day visit, and we'll get them midweek and then see what happens. Maybe we could get them to commit before July 1st when that dead period kicks in. So, I mean, it's actually a pretty unique idea and a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to talk a little bit about the upcoming visit weekend, though. We got a bunch of kids coming, starting on Friday for a visit. The biggest names out of that group would probably be Dylan Gooden out of Maryland, who's Doc Gooden's son we talked about before, and Chase Desantis is visiting this weekend. Only one commit for Rutgers visiting this weekend, and Devon Fuse. Who would you say you're putting on commit watch after this weekend? Not to blow up anybody's spot.
There's a couple dudes right away. Like Jesse O'Fury has already been to campus a couple times, the wide receiver out of Massachusetts. He's one I'll keep a close eye on. Dominic Rivera, we just put a future cast in for last week, an offensive lineman out of Ohio, somewhere in the Midwest.
Yep.
Ohio. Moselle Williams, Florida offensive lineman, just got an offer the other day. He sounds super pumped about it. He's massive. I haven't got a chance to watch his tape like in depth a little bit. I watched a couple clips, and you could just see the size difference between him and like the opposing defenders. He's like 6'6", 320, 330, something like that. So he's kind of that mold that they kind of like in like Holland Pierce or a Curtis Dunlap type guy, where they figure they can mold them into like a pretty special player. So I'd say right away, those are 3 names. And then Ted Gregory too. 2 more actually. Ted Gregory, defensive end out of Hudson Catholic. Very, very close to putting in a future cast for him, because it just has no other official visits. It seems like Rutgers is like the main one in contact with them. And they have a pretty good connection with Hudson Catholic, landing Taj White last class, who actually looks pretty slim. So I'm at the camp the other day. He has slimmed down quite a bit. He's gonna be an interesting one down the line for Rutgers. And then Abraham Wright out of Florida, Fleming Island. If you guys follow these guys on Twitter, you see Jasir Peterson quote tweeting every single one of them and saying like the one.
Yeah, he's an animal.
Yeah, Abraham Wright was like 5 days until my visit. Can't wait for Rutgers. And he's like, no, 5 days until your commitment. ... Like it's just he's funny. Like he's a funny dude. Devon Fuse too. I think it's not going to come out publicly, but we'll talk to him afterwards, and we'll probably try to get an article like ASAP. You got to reaffirm that commitment. You got to get like him just to basically tell you like, no, coach, like I know Pitt offered, but we're locking it down. So that's not a commitment per se, but it is a commitment if you want to call it that.
Yeah. So is he visiting mainly to lock him up, because there's no other commitments visiting in June, it looks like?
No, it just I don't really know. I guess you could probably argue it's more of a lockup visit, just because like the Pitt offer did come in. They are down the street from him, I think an hour or less, something like that. Yep. So it is locking him up. And then especially if you get a couple other dudes to commit, it's kind of like it's almost like a train. Like you get one and then it's like, oh, this one's gonna commit, and this one, or like a domino effect, like this one. Because I wouldn't be shocked to say Sunday night, Monday, you probably wait till Monday morning, because Gianna likes to strategically play these things. So you get the big news on Monday morning, and it's like, whoa, Rutgers got 1, Rutgers got 2, Rutgers got 3, Rutgers got 4, Rutgers got 5. Like that's how I would play it personally. But I could see these guys spacing out a little bit. You always let the kids kind of decide too. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw one Sunday night and one Monday morning, or 2 and 2, or if you want to build all the hype for one day, 4 in one day. But those would be the names I'd keep the closest eye on. I'd even watch Dylan Gooden. I think Dylan Gooden has potential to commit. His recruitment is kind of
really
quiet.
Interesting.
It's really weird, his recruitment, because he's like a really good player. He's rail thin, but the New York connections are there, obviously, with his dad being a New York Mets legend. So it wouldn't shock me. This is probably their best bet at getting a 4-star in this class. So it's going to be interesting to see his thoughts after this visit.
And obviously, I think Chase Desantis made I think he scheduled his official visit relatively recently.
Yes, past weekend.
But he'll be here this weekend. Is this a courtesy visit? Is this like a legit interest from him? give us your read on Chase Desantis.
It's a serious interest in Rutgers. He does think the program's on the rise. He does like see something special there, like building a little bit, but it's tough for me to see him going anywhere other than like Michigan State right now. I think A&M made a hell of a push on him this past weekend. He's very close with Steve Adazio at this point, who is the O-line coach down there. Obviously, both Northeast guys. Adazio has connections throughout Boston College, Temple, during those 2 days as head coach. I actually spoke with him yesterday. We'll have an article out Thursday AM bright and early, so you can check that out. He doesn't say a whole lot. He's a very quiet kid in general, but he's interested to see what the Rutgers players think of the program, which, I mean, of course, they're going to hype it up. But it's interesting because now I think it's like one of those scenarios where, like, I don't know if you remember, Shiano said this in one of his first interviews back. He was like, yeah, I put the kids in a room with a couple of players. We all leave. Parents leave, I leave, everyone leaves. And we let them talk one-on-one and actually talk like about how everything's going and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think they are there yet, but they are pushing. They are pushing for pretty seriousness. I think out of that top 5 he has, I think Rutgers would easily make the top 4, if not top 3.
Interesting.
So we'll see.
All right. Well, do you have anything else you want to talk about before we sign off today?
No. By the time this comes out, I'll be down at Monmouth. Monmouth invited Illinois, Michigan, Notre Dame down there. Everyone's favorite head coaching candidate, Al Golden's going to be there. Can't wait to BS with him and be like, hey, remember that time everyone wanted you to get Rutgers and you didn't get it? I got to go.
God.
Talk to you later, Al. Yeah, no, there's supposed to be a lot of commits, or not commits, a lot of kids down there, like 500, 600. So we'll see what happens.
Interesting.
So I'll have something to report on our next pod, hopefully.
Awesome. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in again. Stay tuned to the boards. I'm sure there'll be more news coming hot and heavy the next couple of days. But
Yep.
For both of us, this is another edition of the Night Report podcast signing off.